Hello, Theater Journal readers. My name is Taryn Chen. I'm the online editor for Theater Journal. Thanks so much for tuning in and welcome to our brand new TJ Online Contributor Interview video series. This series is designed to introduce new work from the journal to a wider audience and increase accessibility, especially for non-theater specialists and for students. Today, I'm thrilled to be here with Professor Donatella Galella, Associate Professor of Theater History at the University of California, Riverside, to discuss her article, Democracy, Reprise, and the Asian American Ambivalence of Soft Power, which you can find in the March 2024 issue of Theater Journal. That's volume 76, issue 1, in print or online on Project Muse. Professor Galella's article connects to her broader body of scholarly work, which includes her first book, America in the Round, Capital, Race, and Nation at Washington, D.C.'s Arena Stage, and a second book project on how yellowface persists in 21st century musical productions, and how Asian Americans and other anti-racist artists re-script yellowface. America in the Round was an honorable mention or finalist for the 2020 Best Book Awards from the American Society for Theater Research, Association for Theater and Higher Education, and American Theater and Drama Society. Professor Galella also won a Visiting Scholar Fellowship from UCLA's Asian American Studies Center and a Mellon Second Project Fellowship from UCR's Center for Ideas and Society to support her current research. And she's president of the American Theater and Drama Society. Professor Galella, thank you so much for joining me today and for sharing your work.
Thank you for having me.
So to begin, could you give a brief summary of the topic of your article and its main argument?
Yes, so imagine a future where the world's leading superpower is China, and the world's favorite musical is about a Chinese theater producer teaching Hillary Clinton that the United States is a backwards country full of gun violence, racism, and an electoral college system that doesn't make any sense. So that's David Henry Hwang and Janine Tazori's off-Broadway musical Soft Power. It's a reversal of the Orientalist dynamics in Richard Rodgers and Oscar Hammerstein II's The King and I. And it comments on and then puts into action the emotional and ideological force of musical theater, the way that sometimes we get swept away by sumptuous music and sentimental storytelling, often without even questioning the show's politics or even our own politics. So I believe that Soft Power makes for a great case study for how musical theater and nationalist induction work or don't work. And what I argue is that Soft Power provides an ambivalent take on American democracy. On the one hand, maintaining a true faith in its ability to include everyone eventually and make a more perfect union, but also underlining its rootedness in racism and how we can never actually get away with that, like we will never actually be included. And then all at the same time, pointing out that there's a seductive power to musicals and how they orient our political beliefs.
Thank you. That's so fascinating. As someone who researches Chinese theater and teaches students in the US who love US-based musical theater, I am looking forward to reading your article, and your take on it sounds so helpful and illuminating. Could you tell us a little bit about how you came to this topic?
Yeah, so I saw Soft Power in 2018. I loved it so much. I had never identified with a musical in this way before. Like, I laughed so much, I cried so much. And then I became really fascinated by the critical reception, especially because it opened in LA at the same time that we were having our Song, Stage, and Screen conference, which is like the international UK and US conference devoted to musical theater. So I was surrounded by musical theater scholars who also went to go see it. And I found that most of them disliked the musical and they thought it was either too didactic or too patriotic, or they just openly said they didn't understand any of it. And then on the other hand, I found people who love the musical because it offered these salient critiques of American politics. But then on the other hand, people loved it because they thought, well, in the end, it celebrates how great this country is. So I wanted to figure out, how does soft power register on these multiple levels? Why do so few people see all of the levels at the same time? And I've been thinking through how it's sometimes hard for people to hear critiques of musicals that they love and hear critiques of a country that they love.
Certainly resonates with me, especially the part about ambivalence. Although, as somebody who works abroad, I think I've been sitting with my own ambivalence about both the US and US theater for quite some time. I've already mentioned a little bit about your first book and your current project, but could you tell us also how this particular piece connects to your broader research?
Yeah, this article forms part of the last chapter in my book in progress about how yellowface persists in contemporary musical theater and how Asian Americans are working to resist yellowface. So in my project, I wanted to make sure I didn't just spotlight white nonsense. I wanted to also spotlight Asian American creativity. So soft power basically serves up revenge for the king and I specifically, and yellowface generally, in part by having an almost all Asian American cast perform in whiteface, making up and making fun of stereotypes of white Americans. Also, the musical explicitly addresses the emotional power of musical theater itself. So I argue in my book that like the big question is, why does yellowface keep happening? And I've come to the really sad conclusion that basically it's because a lot of white people like it, and they like it because there is often a general disavowal of the very existence of systemic anti-Asian racism. So if it's not real, then it's okay to laugh and continue to derive pleasure and profit from this. And musicals play a big role in this because they're so enjoyable. So the pleasures of musical theater can help enable people to keep getting away with yellowface.
Certainly always shocking to me when I see that yellowface still exists, even as we're critiquing so much else about representation in US theater. So I'm very much looking forward to not only this article, but the whole book project when it finally comes out. My last question is really for any undergraduate students who might be watching this, for example, as part of a class assignment. What would you like them to take away from your article? So, what does the research that suggest more broadly about, or how does it reflect on contemporary US theater and especially musical theater?
I would love for students to take seriously the idea that all musical theater is propaganda, not just the musicals that we think are like overly didactic that we just don't like that hit people over the head. It's like, no, the stuff you like too is it also has a political agenda, and it's particularly insidious if you don't even realize that. So that's also an invitation to all of us as students and scholars to realize that we're all complicit with various political ideologies, and it's important to reflect on our own positionality and think about, if I like something or if I think something is good, it's not because it's like inherently good or progressive. There's something that's going on there with identification and being hailed into that musical production, and important to try to like figure that out in an honest way. And it's okay also to love something and realize it's problematic in certain ways. I also encourage us to have a kind of healthy sense of skepticism about American nationalism and democracy, and to realize how it's pretty horrifying when you recognize the depths of white supremacy to this settler colonialist country, and the horror that a lot of people really like it this way, that actually people vote for white supremacy. It benefits them. And instead of thinking like, oh, democracy is broken, like thinking about, no, actually people vote for things that preserve their privileges. And then lastly, I'm thinking of, I really hope that the article will drive people to go listen to the soft power cast recording and watch clips that are available on YouTube, and have this other way of seeing Chinese and Asian American representation on stage and in the nation state that's not Miss Saigon, that's not the King and I. And I hope that the ending, when there's the song Democracy and the reprise of it, that we can think about ways for all of us to be together and help each other beyond an impossible horizon of national inclusion. Like, we don't have to just fortify and be included in a troubling nation state? Can we imagine some other community, another way of organizing and being together that's actually better for all of us, where we don't have to be the same, where we can preserve our differences, but also have justice and material equality?
I think all of these are really salient reminders, especially in this year, 2024, as we're coming up to a national election. So I'm so thrilled that Theater Journal is able to publish this piece at this moment in time. And thank you so much for this conversation. Is there anything else you'd like to offer our viewers, readers, before we say farewell?
Just thank you again. And again, I just really hope people engage more with like the soft power of soft power.
Great. Thank you so much for your time and for the wonderful article. And everyone who's watching this, go read it. Thanks.